Welcome. You're tuned into Life is a Sacred Journey. Every week, we bring a new perspective to aging and caregiving. Here is your host, Michelle Pope.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you in the virtual neighborhood and to Lisa's mom, who will be watching this later on. You know, when you have a mom out there, moms love you and they want to know what you're doing in your life. And so it's really cool that her mom is probably watching or will watch this later. So good morning to Lisa's mom. But to all of you in the virtual neighborhood of Life is a Sacred Journey, I am your host, Michelle Pope. It is an honor to be back with you. You've had 2 Fridays without me, and we'll talk about Belgium later on, but I will tell you, and those of you who follow me on Facebook know that I had one of the most wonderful times of my life. And I say that every time I do something new because I want my life to be wonderful at every moment. That doesn't mean, as I've said to many of you, that there's not hardship or pain or whatever in my life or in the history of my life, but I choose joy. Remember, we talked about joy. Let's choose joy as we move forward into this Friday. Good morning to all of you. I see your comments coming up. It is so good to see you too. I'm sending you a wonderful virtual hug. And I am excited today. And I'm trying to get my camera. You know, I got to get used to this again. I know I'm looking in the wrong place, but you know how I roll. I don't, I'm looking at Lisa. I have the honor, you know, I don't, all of you say to me, you don't know how I do what I do. And I realized, because I was thinking about my life flying over the ocean 13 hours away from here, that I'm doing what I was made to do. Okay, I'm a spiritual purpose person, so I believe that I'm living out my purpose. For some of you, it's my calling. For some of you, you say, this is where my enzymes and my DNA just get really happy. For me, I'm living out my purpose. Everything is interconnected. So the trip to Belgium is connected to even this conversation this morning, is connected to a conversation I'll have down the road or have had in the past. And that's why Life is a Sacred Journey is so special to me, and all of you are. So hit that share button, because Felicia would get me if I didn't tell you to do that. Hit that share button and share it with someone else as we move into this conversation this morning. This morning, Lisa, and I'm going to say it wrong because I just asked her to pronounce it for me, but you know how this New York accent messes up stuff. Malul? Malul. Lisa Malul. I love that. Now I got it. And Lisa is the executive director for Rebuilding Together. I have the honor and privilege. She asked me to come and warm a seat on the board. I didn't know what I could offer or give, but Lisa brings out like the best in all of us as board members, and she definitely brings out the best in me as a colleague in Alameda County, where we both are working for the rights of those individuals that are underserved, not seen, and oppressed by systems that we kind of put in place. And now we're trying to dismantle them so that everybody can live their best life. It's not, privilege is one thing, but living your best life just means having access, people. Because when you have access to something, then you can do better, you know, but when you don't have access to good housing and all of that, it makes it hard. My first thing that I did as a board member was Lisa got us out of our homes on a Saturday, and we went to a woman's home and we painted it. You know, Michelle Pope, I'm like a perfectionist. Even it's like, okay, do you want me to paint down here, Lisa? She's like, yeah, go ahead, paint down there. I wasn't there to see the reaction on the face of the individual whose home we painted. But Lisa shared with us that this was a generational home that needed a little TLC so this person could live out their elder years, continuing to live in this space. And that the joy on her face from rebuilding together, painting her home, was something that just, I'm sorry I missed it, but from Lisa's recollection of it, my heart just was broken. One, that she had to wait for Rebuilding Together, but also open that Rebuilding Together was there for her. So I want to introduce to you this morning my dear colleague and friend and board executive director of Rebuilding Together. So yay, Rebuilding Together. So good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Michelle. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on your podcast. I was so excited to have learned not that long ago that you actually did it. I've known about your leadership and about your work, and you have always been so delighted by you. And I'm so grateful that you joined my board of directors. It's fantastic.
It's a love fest.
Well, you're always just the energy and the positivity and the insight that you bring to all the things that you do. And I hadn't realized that this whole piece about life is a sacred journey, and that you embody that spiritual essence, which is so much of what we do at Rebuilding Together, whether people call it a spiritual journey or whether they call it giving back, or whether they say it's just how good I feel by participating.
Yes. So tell me, or tell our virtual audience, and good morning to my family in Belgium. I miss you so much. So, but for those that don't know, let's start with your story just a little bit. What brought you to Rebuilding Together, and why did you feel that your time, talent, and treasure needed to be in that place? Because we all have options, but you chose Rebuilding Together. Will you share with us why?
Oh, thank you for that question. It's I think I've always been on a spiritual journey. And, I started out I'm from New York, and I had always, the initial job that I actually went to look for was in the nonprofit area. And I was young, I was out of school, and it wasn't quite what people were looking for from me. And in the end, I went to law school. I was a practicing attorney for a number of years. And again, what I realized so much for myself is that that's not what my calling was. It was commercial litigation, and it's not what I wanted to do. So I did transition, without going into the whole long story, but ultimately long life, moving to California, and ultimately being engaged by a number of people at Rebuilding Together who felt they needed some new leadership. And while I didn't know a lot about housing and those issues, the things that we all sort of absorb from the world around us, but I thought it was a beautiful new phase of really more deeply understanding what happens on the local level, what happens to that housing and those issues for elders and for folks that are disabled, for our veterans. And how to serve that community, how to help that. And it's been a beautiful time, it's a very spiritual time. I will say that the way that we work is a combination of volunteers, skilled volunteers, contractors, construction companies that come and help, and banks, and just all kinds of folks that come in and do this work with us, which is about revitalizing communities. But what that means to revitalize a community is to help people within that community. And what is so special about this work, and what I remind our volunteers and participants about all the time, is that the work that we do isn't charity. It's what I call an infinity loop of giving and receiving. Because if people didn't have the courage to ask for the help that they need, the volunteers wouldn't have the opportunity to give, and that feeling that you get and that experience of doing that. And at the same time, if the volunteers and people weren't doing what they're doing, the homeowners and the clients that we serve wouldn't have the opportunity to be helped.
That's right.
Right. So it's really, there's a there's a balance in that, and never should be just to remind people that you're not coming from a place of above.
Right.
You're coming from a place of with.
Yes. And that equalizes the playing field. It was the feeling that I got when we did the home, painted the home, was more like, I'm being a good neighbor. I'm being, this is the right thing to do. And it's not about me come flying in with my invisible wings. It's about doing something for a neighbor. And for me, the fact that I never saw her, the owner, kind of made it even better for me, because it was sort of like, I don't know who this person is, but I know somebody is benefiting. And that, Lisa, is, wow, I can't tell you, I've carried that feeling, because most people that I have served in everything that I've done, I know who they are. And that was a pivotal moment in the transformation for me, about my evolution as a human, that it feels really good when you don't know.
Yes. And, and that those personal connections are really beautiful. I will say that the work that we do, and we work throughout Alameda County here in California, wouldn't be possible without my program director and staff who receive hundreds of applications each year, which are, people need to show eligibility for the program, right? So to be 62 or older, or if you have a disability, which can be, a mobility issue, a number of different things. You need to own your home. We do sometimes work with renters with the approvals of the landlords. But it's mostly for small home modifications like grab bars or toilet seat risers, making sure that people have CO detectors, smoke alarms.
That's important, right? Gosh, Lisa, I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah,
like those basic things. So much of the application process that happens is, and then we get thousands of phone calls, right? And in working with that, we hear so many stories of, people who it's just, they haven't been able to afford these repairs. They've gotten older and they can't put up a light bulb because it's too high. We've gone into homes where everything below eye level is perfect, but meanwhile, all these other things are happening above, right? Things we take for granted. It's just fascinating work, but it's very emotional work for my team, because we can't help everyone, which we would like to, which is why I fundraise all year round. And I know we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it takes very special people to do this work. And I know that you have that experience in your own work. Your profession, this is your profession too, but your multiple professional hats.
Well, and what you're saying is so vital and important. It's about all of us working together, but it's also about ensuring that everybody in the continuum of what we do is supported. And that's why fundraising is so important. But before we move into, is Rebuilding Together a national organization that wherever people are listening to Life is a Sacred Journey, they could possibly reach out and get involved?
Please, yes. The national website is rebuildingtogether.org. Our website in this Alameda County in California is rtoakland.org.
Okay, say it again, just in case somebody needs to.
The letter R, the letter T, Oakland.org.
Okay, so that means, folks, that wherever you are, look up Rebuilding Together, and even if you're in another part of the state, right? They can do.
In the other part, basically throughout California,
Okay.
Throughout the country, we have an office, a separate five. We're kind of like franchises, I guess would be the best way to understand it. But right now in Tampa Bay, in South Carolina, in all of the areas right now that are being very hard hit by Hurricane Ian, that there are opportunities to help to support the work, all of that reconstruction and revitalization work that's going to happen.
Yes.
So so that's just something really important to know. So again, for the national organization, so you can look and see what's happening in your neighborhood.
Yes.
Rebuildingtogether.org. Okay. And again, for the work that we're doing in Alameda County here in California, it's the letter RT, Oakland.org.
Okay, perfect.
And I do want to add one of the things that is,
Pardon me.
You know, for anyone that lives in this area, and really, I think actually around who lives in the United States at this point, is you can see the explosion of homelessness.
Yes.
And what we see. And so I want to say how our work directly impacts that work.
Yes.
So
please, because people need to hear. Lisa knows this because she comes to work or lives, I think, in Alameda County.
Live in Oakland.
I come from Contra Costa County, as you all know, and on our streets in Alameda County, in the area in which I work, there were more and more seniors living in tents, and I'm not saying that young people shouldn't live in tents on the street or anything like that, but I can't imagine, as being a senior, I'm 65, I can't imagine having to sleep in a tent on a concrete ground and then know that I had a home once that I worked so hard to have, and then pandemic, disability, loss of income, puts me in a position where I can't repair my home, and then it becomes condemned, and then I have to go and live in a tent. So these stories are stories that Lisa and her staff hear every single day, and Rebuilding Together is trying to prevent that kind of story from making it to that space. I hope you understand, my friends out there, that is heart-wrenching to think that a person worked their whole life to have a home and then lose it because they can't repair it. And at some point, the city has to come in and say, you can't live here anymore. And then where do you go if you've outlived everybody that you love? Or they can't help you because they're in the same boat trying to figure it all out. So Lisa, talk about that, because I think that's where you were going. And I really want people to understand the importance of an organization like Rebuilding Together. So when we talk about the event, even if they cannot come, even if they can't do an auction, you can write a check for whatever amount you can afford and really make an investment in helping somebody else. So thank you for giving me that little platform. So go ahead, Lisa.
One of the things that I'm so appreciative about having you serve on my board for Rebuilding Together Oakland East Bay is that you have such a deep understanding through engagement, but also through your intuitive nature on this trajectory of what can happen for people. I got a call this week from a real estate broker because she was showing a house, and then next door to the house she was showing, she walked by and saw that it was in extreme disrepair and that it looked like there had been a fire. And she went over and she saw this woman who probably, I think in her 80s. And she was sitting in the garage on a chair and she said, "What's happening?" And she's living in this home. And the woman, the real estate person who called me, she says, this woman just can't, this is terrible. We need to rebuild this home. We need to fix this home. And what happens when something gets that far gone? So this woman, the elderly person, this is a perfect storm of what happens when you own this beautiful asset. Something goes wrong. The deferred maintenance goes too long, and that home is going to be red tagged. So by that time, there is nothing that Rebuilding Together Oakland East Bay can do for someone. That is the time when, even if we were able to tear it down and rebuild it up again, where would this woman live in the meantime? Right?
Exactly.
So once it goes, it's just a whole other world of difference. And this is where someone can be living in a tent, be totally displaced.
Yeah.
There is not much affordable housing for someone who has lost everything and lost their major asset. Mm-hmm. If this person has children, or any person has children, you also want to be preserving assets for the next generation.
Right.
Right?
Yes, thank you.
And then the most affordable place for someone to live is typically where they already live. Mm-hmm. Right? Yep. And there's so much funding and support that happens for wraparound services, right? To help people, that for them to lose that asset and that place to live is, it's a tragedy.
Yeah.
I will also add that it used to be that with homelessness, people would say, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there, right? We didn't see what's happening.
Right.
Now, for our senior homeowners, I say, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
Yep.
And even while people think, well, the homes are so expensive, perhaps, you can't live on the value of a home. You live on what your income is. And the cost of repair, the cost of a roof, we try desperately to raise money to repair roofs. A roof repair is $20,000 because most of the roofs have 3 layers of shingles already because they've been patching throughout their lives, right? So, so there's just, I guess, a lot happening out in the world that we can't always see.
Right.
I will also judge that, I will also say that it's so important not to judge people.
We talk a lot about that here.
Because sometimes, you can see, and there might be older children that live in the home. You don't know a family's story. Mm-mm. You don't know the circumstances of their children. You don't know what their relationships are. And it is never our job to judge. Our job is to assess. Our job is to help. Our job is to be compassionate and kind and make sure that our volunteers are engaged in that spiritual way. It is a spiritual thing to be engaged with people's needs.
Yes.
And also with that need that drives people about volunteering and stepping out and doing something with your day that has nothing to do with you.
Isn't that cool? That's like really cool stuff. And it is the thing that when we come to a fundraiser or when we hear about a fundraiser that we want to support. So Gather Together is coming up, and it is the opportunity for the community to become engaged and involved with Rebuilding Together. So tell us about Gather Together and when it is and how much of the tickets. And I know there's an online auction that we can participate in. Felicia will put the QR code in so that all of you that are watching from no matter where you are, actually, you can bid on something, and Lisa will tell you more about it. But Gather Together is coming up, and we're hoping to raise or help to raise $100,000 because I mean, that sounds like a lot of money. But when I think about because I love fashion, I come from the fashion industry, it'll always be in my blood. When I think about a Gucci bag and how much somebody pays for a Gucci bag, I'm thinking, you know what, you could give that to a nonprofit and it would help them do work for 6 months on that one Gucci bag. So I'm not saying that those of you out there, because I don't know if I have those kind of followers, but at the end of the day, I want you to think about it from that perspective, that $100,000 is not a lot of money when a lot of people give, right? And so you just think about it. I mean, how much would it be if we all gave $5? How much would it be if we all gave 10? What it would be if we all gave $1? Yeah, it would be a lot of people that we would have to reach. But then that means we have to tell people that we know to help and to be engaged with Rebuilding Together. So I know there's a lot of church communities out there and young people out there that are always looking for ways to be engaged in the community. Rebuilding Together is one of those places. Don't always put all your eggs in one nonprofit, by the way. We need you to look at what you can do and then figure out, because that's what I do. I look what I can do and I look at what is important to me. And then those 3, 4, 5 places get what I can give. And so, think about giving in that way. And so I'm going to turn the mic over to Lisa to tell you about our upcoming Gather Together event that is a fundraiser, but it's also a friend maker. So if you come out, you'll make some new friends too. So Lisa, tell them all about it.
If you come out, you'll get to experience a lot of love in the room.
Yes, you will.
We attract very warm and kind and fun people, and it's so. I think you're so right on about what you say about giving, and I always say that a $1 donation is as important and as valuable as a $1 million donation, because it comes from the heart. Amen. It comes from giving. It has to do with what I can do. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's just a beautiful thing. So Gather Together, it's our big fundraising event for the year. We've already raised $45,000 toward our $100,000 goal.
Yay!
Which is just incredible, but we still have a long way to go. It is 10% of our budget. Our budget is $700,000.
Okay.
So this is a really important part of keeping our work going here in Alameda County, Rebuilding Together Oakland East Bay, rtoakland.org. We with $100,000, to give you a sense, so with the $700,000 budget, we served 167 people last year. Okay. This $100,000 will help us serve 20 to 30 of those people.
Okay.
And where this money goes is to the materials, the programmatic support, the engagement, all those phone calls that we receive, all of these clients, the hundreds of clients that we talk with every year that we can help, and those that we can't because we don't have the resources. But every penny that we do goes to support the organization, which supports this community.
Mhm.
So this is a very important event for us.
Mhm.
The way to buy a ticket,
Yep.
come to the event, come meet people and get out there. This year, the Gather Together theme is coming back. And what we'll be talking about is what that thread is that keeps people coming back.
Mhm.
If they volunteered 15 or 20 years ago when our name was Christmas in April, they
Remember
still
that?
come back,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so what is it about this work that just keeps that heart engaged and keeps that connection to volunteerism alive for folks?
Mhm.
So come to the event. We're at the Lake Merritt Sailboat House in Oakland, California. Of course, if you can't be with us in person, you can be with us in spirit.
Yay.
Yay. The event is on October 6th, which is barreling down in my face to make sure that everything is ready. It's from 5:30 to 9
Okay.
in the early evening. It is a casual event. We started out as a barn raising in Midland, Texas, way back in 1984.
Wow. That is amazing.
And here
And
we are in Oakland
yeah.
and in Alameda County from basically we serve from Oakland all the way down through Hayward and the
Okay.
unincorporated areas. And only if we had additional funding, we would serve all the way down through the tippy end of Fremont and Union City. Because we get calls from everywhere.
I know you do.
Just, so if you can't be with us, of course, your donation of $1, $5, $10,
Whatever you can
$10,000,
give.
right? Whatever that is,
Yep.
it goes a long way because it adds up so quickly.
It does. It does.
And
then the other, Lisa, I see you have some things though. There's like a hotel in San Luis. There's the that you can bid on. There's a wine tasting of reserve wines. Nancy Redding, I know you and I love to do that together. Maybe we can bid on it together. It looks like some stays so there's a lot. When Felicia puts up that QR code, go on in there because you can do your bidding from October 3rd, which is coming up at 5 p.m. to the close of October 6th at 7:30. So that all of that is really important for you to know, and you can participate. I love online bidding. It's so much fun, because you can watch it and then sneak in and get what you really want. Wait on that person. Bid up, you bid it up. And then you lay back, as the kids would say, lay back in the cut, and then you come back and you get your thing because they've forgotten about it, right?
That's right.
That's auction etiquette in some way.
Yes, the down and dirty.
Yeah.
The down and dirty of that silent auction. I love that
so
too.
Lisa, I know you have to go because you have another meeting that you need to get ready and engaged in, but Rebuilding Together, again, is an organization that is in the community, on the ground, really assisting people and walking beside them. Not, as Lisa made a very valuable point in the beginning about not being lofty over and making people feel like, aren't you really lucky that we showed up? It's more of, we're coming together and we are our brother's keeper, and we notice that you have this need and we can help. So, and that takes an executive director like Lisa to carry that vision. I know how hard that is. You can get burnt out from time to time because fundraising is hard. People always look at you when you start your little pitch. They know you're going to go there because I know they know I'm going to go there. But we're doing it for the people. And when we can really engage folks like you who can engage more folks like you, then we can be the change we want to see. So Lisa, what are your sort of last words that you want to share with the Life is a Sacred Journey family that will maybe get them even more interested in rebuilding together, not just for the October 6th event, but to continue to follow and maybe even come out and volunteer?
There is, I think, as many people, if not all in your community know, there really is nothing more rewarding than spending a little bit of your time, and if you don't have time, a little bit of your financial support. And if you don't have time, to just be kind to your neighbor. And if you see that someone is in distress in their home, to call us, Rebuilding Together Oakland East Bay, to call, to make sure that people get the help they need. Volunteerism is at the heart of what we do.
Yeah.
So come step out, do a house preview, help us do that. Come out, spend a day and volunteer. For unskilled volunteers, you're going to go scrape that paint or paint that house or do some debris removal. It's really fun because you make new friends, you connect with your community, and you just see that shininess of humanity and of each other, and you get to participate in that in a very different way. So again, we're Rebuilding Together Oakland East Bay for those of you in Alameda County who really want to support and do this. There are a lot of competing demands on people's time and for your financial resources. So just do what you can. Yeah. Come out and help.
Yes.
But also with this silent auction, there are so many getaways. If I could get them all, I would love it. But go to Bozeman, Montana, go to Carmel, go to San Luis Obispo, go to up to Napa, do some wine tastings. There's so many special things. And with all of those, we say, and I know you say, it's so much about the heart. It's also about giving yourself a little bit of joy and a little bit of that sensory experience. Grab it. I agree with you, Michelle. Grab life.
Yes.
Grab life and just love it. Love yourself. Feel good. And God bless you, Michelle, for doing the work that you do.
Thank you for coming to Life is a Sacred Journey, and also for all the work that you're doing. And, you're infectious and you bring people to Rebuilding Together because we want to follow you and figure out why you are so joyful. And that's what Life is a Sacred Journey, you guys, as we're closing, is all about. It's that when you are enjoying, then people want to know why you're enjoying. And so be the change you want to see in the world. And we always end our Life is a Sacred Journey podcast this way. If you're feeling depressed, you're feeling grief, you're feeling like the ripple effect of life has taken you to a place where you want to end your life, please find a phone. Please find someone. Dial 988, which is the suicide hotline, the short version. The long version is 1-800-273-8255. And as I always tell you, if you can make it through that moment, and you talk to someone who helps you to realize how magnificently, wonderfully you are made, and that you taking your life will affect me and everybody else, because you right now think that you don't matter. You matter. You matter to the success of this humanity. So please dial 988, 1-800-273-8255 if you're in that place. Know you're not alone, and know that there are people out there that are willing to say, hey, how you doing? And love you through this moment. So Lisa has been with us from Rebuilding Together. October 6th is the event. Go on the website, look for the QR code, and all of you, go out and hug a tree. You know how I feel about the trees, right? Go hug a tree. It'll make you feel good. Pet a cat, pet a dog, and know that life is a sacred journey, no matter where you choose to live it, and do it the best way that you can. All right. Peace out, my friends. Lisa, hold on a moment. Have a good weekend, everybody. It's good to be back on American soil with you. Mwah.